I need to do my thing so I can go onto my Facebook. All right, so I was a little tired. My sister had me cracking up. I'll share that in a second. All right, hi everyone. Thank you for showing up to class. I am challenging myself. Hopefully, you all can hear me. I am challenging myself to start teaching more. If you watch any of my YouTube channels, got a lot of the videos over there. Even have a podcast. I haven't uploaded an episode because I was like, let me go ahead and push myself and teach live like I used to. So I am going to be talking about how you show up for yourself. How do you show up? And on YouTube, I added 4 reasons why you may not be elevating. Hi, I'm Dr. Vernita Glenn White. I go by Dr. V. I'm a college professor turned life professor ish. And I also consider myself the brilliant solutionist. And not saying that I am brilliant, but I've been able to help people draw out brilliant people draw out the solution from within themselves. And I am in the space of life coaching, strategic life coaching, transformation. But at the heart of all of that, I am an educator. And what I learned through all of my years of experience being an educator, going from being a sixth grade teacher, well, even if we go way back, because if I go way back and really count some numbers, I've been teaching probably almost 25 years. I need to do the math, and that's funny because I teach math. But I've been teaching for a minute. Like even before I was degreed, I was working with summer camps and with youth and tutoring and all of those, really starting at the age of 15. So I've been in this for a minute, and what this journey has taught me is that regardless of the subject, teaching it and being an educator is all about drawing out what's already in people. And then my trained part is developing strategies and plans or lesson plans to help people get their desired goal. And when that clicked for me, I was like, I've been doing this the whole time. I made this transition way harder than it needed to be. But we are going to jump in and let me tell you why my sister had me laughing. And if anybody know me, don't put it in the chat. Like what I'm about to say, don't call any names, but it's not hard to put two and two together. But she was showing me, and I'm just putting it out there. She showed me a picture of our old church and how they did Vacation Bible School. And my mom, let me show y'all a picture. This was the type of person my mom was. So she was like the hat church lady. She was that person, old school church. And so she was a Sunday school superintendent. She taught Bible study and she was over vacation Bible school. She did a lot with the youth department and the young adult department. And that's really how I got into teaching. Not like, and at first I thought I was teaching to be like an educator in the traditional sense, but all of this, what I'm doing now, especially in the personal development space and the self-help industry. And if you watch some of my latest YouTube videos talking about the practical applications of biblical principles and making that relatable to real life, I got it from my mama. I was avoiding it. I was like, no, I don't want to be like her, but yes, I do. So she used to do that. And so my sister showed me a picture of what is happening at the Vacation Bible School now. And it is so not how my mom would have done it. And so I'm not gonna say too much, but we were having our jokes back and forth, and she's sending me like all these kind of memes, and I was like, "Stop! I'm about to go live. You about to make me fall out laughing." So but I love that, in a moment, if you don't know, my mom passed away. It's been 11 years now. Her and my grandfather passed 3 weeks apart back in 2012. So the fact that we're able to have like a joking moment, even though it's something that's so tragic, we talking about Vacation Bible School, but that those are the moments that bring us together as sisters and ways for us to remember our mom. We didn't I mean, we've always appreciated our mom and people always loved our mom. And so it's not like we never thought we didn't have a cool mom. We've always thought that. But it's like now that she's passed away and now we're looking at different, areas of our lives, we appreciate her more and more about, things that she tried to teach us or things that she did teach us. And we wrote a book with her that wasn't part of it. I'll show you all that in the next class. All right, so let's get into it. If you are new to me, hi, welcome. If you are like, I don't want to watch any of your 400 something videos on YouTube. You can go read my book, Embracing Grit for Greatness, Becoming Professionally Powerful Through Personal Empowerment. It is available on Amazon. I wrote this in 2020, and we know what was happening during that time. And it took me 3 months to write this book from concept to publication. And I'm proud of that because it was during the time when I was trying to like run out of my professorship job, and it it was some lessons and some things that I had to learn about, who I was, who I was becoming. And it was just a lot going on at that time, not even just talking about in the world, but in my life. And that's how this book came up. So when I was talking of what I'm going to talk about tonight is how do we show up, it has something to do with the book. Because at first I wasn't going to say, oh, go read my book, but I realized that the book isn't just about like my story. You will learn some things about me, but it's an actual practical application book. Like these are the things I literally did. This is what I was struggling with. These are the exercises I did to overcome it, and then what it looks like on the other side. And I used to go so hard in the professional development paint. I have 5 degrees and I was working at some really high levels, and that required a lot of additional trainings and support, like going to conferences and all of those kind of things, right? So, but then as I transitioned, it's like, okay, what more can I do? I'm still feeling like what is happening? Well, that's because I had to go inward. I had to get personal development. Not one more degree, not one more certification, not one more workshop or conference was going to feel what was happening on the inside. And that's what I talk about in my book. But before I was actually able to write my book, this class tonight is about what happened in that gap between when I graduated my doc program, not having a job when I graduated, finally getting a job, even though it wasn't where I wanted to be, and then right before right before I became a college professor. So if you don't know, I graduated. I got my doctorate in 3 years. I was ready to go. It was a lot of things happening. I talk about in the book, and you would expect for me to be I was a quote unquote triple threat. And I don't like that word anymore, but the term means, it's like, whoa, like you will always be hireable and desirable. You're Black, you're female, and your degree is in the STEM field, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Hot commodity. Well, not really, because I didn't have any job offers, and I applied for like 33, 35 different jobs. And yeah, it was crazy. Didn't get hired. And I mean, I found out why behind the scenes, but still. But so I had to go back to the public education system, and I hated it. I did not want to go back. I was angry at God. I was angry, like, how are you going to let me go through this process? Because when I got my doctorate, I retired from going from being a teacher because I went full time. I was like, I'm out. This is it. Cash out. I'm gone. And then for me to have to start from the bottom, like go backwards, it felt like going backwards for me. And I hated every minute of it. But and I went kicking and screaming like I was not the best person to be around. I can say this. I showed up like I knew it all because I did. But that wasn't the right approach, and it caused so much friction and conflict, and I had to learn some things, and it was really about how I showed up in that season, in that gap moment. I'm not afraid to share that with y'all, and I think that's why a lot of us don't elevate where we one of my lights just went out. That's why a lot of us don't elevate where we want to go because it's our attitude and how we show up. So during my devotional time, and this is not a Bible study lesson, but I like to tell, and when I used to teach even mathematics, and I taught some other types of classes too, I always like to tell where the inspiration came from. So I was doing the Bible study. I am reading the Bible in a year challenge. I'm doing that, but I'm not doing it, to say like, oh, look at me, I'm reading in a year. It's a discipline thing for me because I can do like the 5 days, 7 days, 14 days. I can even do like some 30 days because I know it's going to end. But every time I do the Bible one, I like stop at day 15 or something because it's just like too much. So I'm challenging myself, and that's why I'm doing it. And we're doing it with the group. But as I was reading it, we're in like the Numbers Leviticus type of area where the It's all about the children of not yeah, the children of Israel, they're out in the wilderness, but now they're talking now the priests and the Levites are getting instructions on how they are presenting their offerings to God. So if you go back and read part of Leviticus and like Numbers chapters 1 through 3, it is very detailed oriented of how they show up physically, how they show up for themselves during the process of the offerings, and even how they dress the offerings. Going back to, if you can hear my puppy, I don't know what it is. He does this every time I get on here live. He can be quiet all day. But anyway, even how the tabernacle was built, it was very specific instructions. So what it led me to think about is, in the practical sense, how do we show up for work or in your business? And you'll hear me mostly talk about the professional, like workspace kind of thing, because that's where I was looking back on what I had to change to elevate. Now, even though I didn't want to be a college professor, when I went to get my doctorate, the idea of becoming a college professor was a lot better than being going back to the K-12 system. That's just that's just what it was. And if it looked anything like being a full-time doctoral student and the freedom and the flexibility, and then I'm looking at all of my professors, I was like, oh yeah, I would definitely choose that over what I had to go through. So I wanted it more than I wanted to stay where I was. And it was about how I showed up. So if you see me looking down, I have notes. Real educators, we have notes. I would not be coming on here trying to wing it and talk off the top of my head, although I will go off on tangents. So the first thing I said was, presentation matters on how you show up. I know, especially in the education space, the profession of education, and just in jobs now, a lot of times it's like, well, it shouldn't matter what I look like when I show up. For me, it did matter as the K-12 crew. It mattered a lot, and it still bothers me. I am not even in education, but when I was a classroom teacher and working at the district level, I was like, why are we showing up looking like we work at Target? Nothing wrong with working at Target, but that's how I give you a visual. But even they had a uniform. Some of these people would just show up looking like whatever. And I know people could say, well, I have to run around with kids all day, or it's a lot of up and down and this, that, and the other. And I was like, I get that, but you can still look presentable. Like a khakis and a polo shirt can still look presentable versus you looking like Saturday morning. And there's a thing with dress for success. It's really about how you feel on the inside. And that's literally how you show up. And when people didn't believe me, I was like, look how I challenge people, dress up just like the better than what you're doing today, and watch your attitude change. Even working from home, you can see a lot of people talk about, oh, I just want to be in something comfortable, or I want to wear, just throw on a t-shirt and some leggings. And that's cool for a minute, but then they'll start saying, like, you know what? I had to snap out of it. I at least had to put on a different type of shirt or get some athleisure wear to make me feel like I wasn't just rolling out of the bed. So, how do you show up for yourself physically? I remember when I was working at a high school and I was over the mathematics department. I was over, I think, like 15 to 17 teachers from intensive mathematics all the way up to calculus. And I dressed up, one, because I was like in my 20s and I'm not that tall. So I had to dress up, and I was working in a high school. So I did that for me, but then I noticed that my team, the mathematics department, they all started stepping up how they dress. Now I'm not saying they dress like how I dress, but instead of just throwing on the Saturday t-shirt, maybe the t-shirt was ironed out a little more, or maybe the t-shirt turned down to a button down. Maybe they were wearing jeans, which I hated if it was a Tuesday, but that's just my preference. The jeans would have little crease in them, this time. And I remember the district specialist people would come out and they were like, oh my gosh, Bernita, you have like the best dress department we've seen in all the schools that we visit. And it's nothing that I said, hey, you all have to dress up. but it was just kind of, a thing that happened. And overall, and I know this may be a stretch, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The scores during that time for our mathematics department actually went up because physical presentation also mattered. So I wonder about you when you're going to your place of employment, whether it's online or if they made you go back to work. How are you showing up physically? Do you put a little moisturizer on your face? Do you fix your hair even if you're home? Or, a lot of us have been off camera if they're still doing Zoom things. But if they ask you, are you off camera? Because it's like, because I was like that, like, why do I need to be on camera? I could have a full face of makeup on when I was working. I was like, why? But that's just me. Don't do that. But seriously, about how do you show up? Are you going in with the slides and what? I'm not gonna go into too much detail because yeah, but physical presentation matters. And then the second part I said, so that was number one. So if you have something to say about that, let me know your comments down below. Like I get debated with this all the time, but in the education profession, it was a whole lot. Hey, EA, there in the education profession, it just bothered me to my core that the educators would just show up. I know my ABF, I don't know if I can still call him my ABF, my academic best friend, he's still in that space. And he still goes to the education conferences and he'll send me pictures of like, look at this here. And I was like, we still dressing like that, but whatever. But I digress. You can go watch some of my YouTube videos to really see why I think the vibe is really going down in the education profession, and part of it has to do with dress. You can debate me if you want to, but that's what I'm going to say. All right. The number two, how do you show up mentally? Your attitude, your values, and your character. So, in the biblical sense, I know for me, sometimes like I had to put on like the whole armor of God. And I don't say that just to be cliche. There were times, especially when I was working as a college professor and things were just not going so well. I had to like prepare like my mind. I went down the checklist and I had to mentally prepare. This meditation wasn't going to help in this case. I literally had to say, let me guard my mind, let me guard my heart. Where's my shield? Let me walk in truth. Where's my belt? I literally had to prepare myself mentally. But on the days and it was like, okay, I think I'm good. I still had to prepare, but I wanted to say, regardless of what is happening in the workplace, am I still aligned to who I am at my core? My, what did I say? My attitude. My attitude, if you've been around me, especially in a professional space, my attitude can is I have an attitude. And I don't have a really good poker face. So when I have an attitude, people know I have an attitude. So I definitely have to work on it unless I want you to know I have an attitude. I'm not saying that's always the best, but I'm just being honest. So I had to say, I'm still at these people's job, or I know that it's I want to go to another level. I can't expect them to change. They're going to do what they want to do. I can only literally control my attitude and me. They're not in charge of my attitude even if they pissed me off because they did a lot. I still had to be the one in charge of my attitude. So I had to prepare on the way there. Sometimes I think we just go to work or show up where we're going to be, and then the moment something happens, we're quote unquote triggered as soon as we pull into the parking lot or as soon as we log on. And it's like, whoa, why are you why you shouldn't go off every single time. But that's because you probably didn't use your time to prepare yourself mentally, go through the checklist. And if you're struggling with that, it's probably because you don't know your own core values. I did a training before when I was working as a consultant. When I started a consulting business, I was working with this university and the school district, and it was about diversity, equity, inclusion, and mathematics. But at the core of that, I slid in core values and how if your personal core values don't line up with where you work professionally, it's not going to work. It's not, if it's too far off, then you're going to always struggle because the university or the school district, they're a business and they have a mission and values that they live by or operate by. And if yours don't match, then it may be time for you to go. So when we did that, people were like, and I had them take, quick assessment on their values, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, no wonder I hate it. No wonder I hate it here." Literally. And then some of them said, "Okay, I can see how or why the people are making certain decisions because this is what they value as a company." Now, I'm not telling everybody to go quit their jobs. If you go read your company's values and mission statements, I do invite you to go do that. I'm not saying that, okay, because you don't align, quit. That's not what I'm saying. If you're aware of how they're operating with their mission and their values, and you know yours, it's easier for you to keep yourself in check because you already know if this is what they value, this is how they're making decisions. Why am I getting upset? Why am I trying to fix these people company? I'm just here to do what I'm supposed to do and keep it moving. And I know for me, when I started off at the university, I read all of the stuff and I thought that they were living by their mission and values because they weren't. Oh, my grandma's calling me. Call you back, grandma. And when I realized that the university may have been operating like that, but not my department, I was like, I'm not about to battle these people. They are not going to change. It is not my job to change them. That's them. I'm going to do me, but I was able to stand solid because I knew my own values and then I prepared myself. It says where there is no lead her on YouTube. Make sure you go watch the Lead Her Lab with Marsha. That's my EA, my Earth Angel. Where there is no alignment in values, you will become frustrated. Absolutely. And that's from, she's on YouTube. She said she talks about leadership. And I have a background in leadership, but I don't like coach. I don't focus like I don't teach leadership. I have a whole master's degree, and I'm like, I don't teach leadership. Not in that sense, but yes, definitely. And she would be the right one to really go deep in depth with you to understand, especially from an organizational perspective. So we talked about number one, how you show up physically. I still think it matters, and I hope you do too. Number two, how you prepare and show up mentally with your values, your character, your attitude. How do you prepare yourself? Even if you got to take an extra 30 minutes to talk to yourself and get it together. And that matters because if you're wondering why you're not elevating, it could be those small little tweaks. I kid you not. When I did not like working back at the school district, and I was like, okay, I want, look, I was like, I want to go be a professor now. I had to check my attitude in the school because I got, I'll tell that story another time. I got kicked out of like four different areas of where I was working. And I was like, okay, I'm the problem. Even though I was right. But again, my approach, I had to change my attitude and prepare myself, even when something wasn't right, even when I knew it and knew the answer and how to solve the problem. It was my attitude and my approach, and I had to understand what they valued more than what I valued. All right. And this goes into number three. How do you present and prepare your work? The delivery of what you do. You're welcome. The delivery of what you do. So again, a lot of my references are in education, or you may have in the corporate space or a physical product. So in education, when our teachers or when I was doing teacher prep, or even with my students, how are you turning in your papers? What is the format? Your emails, how does that look? If you're doing a slide deck, if you have to hand out a portfolio or a workbook, how do you put that together? When I was teaching the students, I was very particular about how certain things were supposed to look. And they were like, "Oh, Dr. Glenn White, you're so anal." But it was like, if you can train yourself to take pride in how you present even a term paper or a research paper, or even a lesson plan that we formatted for you and you took the time to adjust it according to your screen, those things matter because when you go out into the professional space, people can say what they want to say. They do still look at it. And I know we're probably in an era where people are like, oh, a lot of that is just old school. This is all about creativity, this, that, and the other. Just, it's not about that. Yes, it is. It is about how you present your actual material, from how do you write emails to how does your, what you call it, the presentation looks, if you're going to do slides, and all of that matters. If you are in the physical product and your business have physical products, how does your packaging look? And that goes back to how you are preparing yourself physically. Does your physical presentation match what you're delivering at work? You can come down with the nicest suit, the nicest clothes, the nicest outfit, everything, but if you're trying to turn in some paper or some paperwork and it's all messy, that's out of alignment. It's incongruent. So which one is the real you? For your values, if it's like about being integrity, want to be authentic, want to be creative, want to be whatever I said, any of your values, being unique, whatever, does that align to how you actually deliver the product? And a lot of that could be you're the product, your speech, anything. Have you taken the time to prepare? And if you're wondering why you haven't elevated, it could be because someone can look at your physical and they're like, okay, he or she, they look really good. Or, they have a great attitude when they show up, they're a team player, or whatever they like about your character, your personality, you're in there. But the moment they ask you to deliver a talk, a speech, or, do a slide deck or portfolio, create whatever it is, and it's a mess, they're like, that's giving amateur when when their package has told me that they were at another level. Now, I'm not saying that you have to obsess over, and it's like, oh, everything has to be. You're not obsessing over it and getting paralyzed by the perfectionist monster, but it should look as good as it can get. It should be your best work ever. Now, within yourself whether you slap something together, or, so I'm not saying like if you did a nice workbook and a presentation and maybe it had a typo, but it's not like you did it at the last minute and the typo is just going to be there. Like, you literally look, and sometimes we don't see our own mistakes. That's not what I'm talking about. But you know what I'm talking about, when you were like, man, forget that boss, or they want me to do what in two, if they want me to do this in a week, I got other stuff to do, or I just don't feel like it. They've been making me mad at the job. I'll do this a few hours before I get to work. Now, some of us are really good at putting things together, and we like to say we work better under pressure. But I'm going to stop you right there. Although you may feel like you work better under pressure, if you're not elevating at the level where you want to go, it has nothing to do with you working well under pressure. You're working under pressure is because you had an attitude, or you just didn't feel like it, or it wasn't a priority. You're not taking pride in your work. So let me know if that makes sense. There's a difference there. Like, I do. I was like, I feel like I work well under pressure, but then it's like, why do I have to be under the pressure? That is not self-care. That is not self-love. So I stopped saying that. Like, when it's crunch time, do I do a little better? Absolutely. But then it's like, I don't have to do this to myself. But even with that, I let's say I was like, okay, I'm gonna be under pressure. One, is it because that's just I'm gonna do it, that's how I operate, or am I doing it out of spite? If I'm not doing it out of spite, and then I'm like, okay, I this is when I'm gonna do it, because I know that if I keep dealing, if I have too much time, I'm going to obsess about it. So I need a focused time. Okay. But I put in 1,000% effort into what I do in that moment because I wanted to show it to be its best self. Then that's like, okay, you can work well under pressure, but you have to check your motives as to why. And if your motives are not because I need a focused, concentrated pressure amount of time to do my best, versus y'all get on my nerves and you'll get it when I get it, that could be a reason why you're not elevating. So check your motives when it's time for your presentation of how you present yourself when you show up. And so I said, stop winging it, and then stop doing the bare minimum too. I know that there was a movement of quiet quitting. especially around what happened in 2021 and 2022, 2021, I think. Now, I'm not talking about the people that got laid off, but I'm talking about it's like, I don't want to do this. Especially when they told some people to come back and you're like, there was a thing called quiet quitting. Now, I have a different spin on quiet quitting. Some people were doing quiet quitting as in I'm just doing the bare minimum of what this job is going to tell me to do. If and I'm not going to put any forth effort. If it has typos, I don't care. You got it. You better be lucky I showed up today. Again, check your motives. But a version of quiet quitting, when I think is okay, and I did this myself, when I saw that I was focusing so much on being the superstar college professor and it wasn't getting me anywhere, and then it was becoming detrimental to my health, literally. When it got to the point where I would put the job and everything that was happening before I would do anything else. Staying up late trying to research and read and create this, that, and the other, obsessing over like when they would comment, trying to make sure I did everything, what they said, just doing too much. But then I realized like no matter the efforts that I did, they weren't going to elevate me where I wanted to go. They weren't going to do it. Now, if I was at a different place, then yes, I believe I would have gotten the promotion. The situation wouldn't have turned out the way it turned out. But I had to get to the point where, you know what? Going for the bronze is good. Going for the bronze. And this is what I mean. A lot of us are high achievers. We work hard, we strive, we like gold stars. We do, I'm going to do exceedingly and abundantly above all. However, that's not always the best time to do that. So when I say like how you show up and how you prepare your work, sometimes you preparing it and going for the bronze, and you have to determine the situation for yourself. When you go for the bronze, you're still on the platform. I did an interview way back, and it's somewhere on my YouTube channel about women who vibe, and it was one of my sorority sisters, and she said because she would put so much into her job that she was so drained for doing any front she was so drained and she couldn't do any of the things that she wanted to do for herself, whether that was go back to school, start a side business, whatever. She was so drained. And then she was like, why am I going for fives when they only required me to go for a three? And the three is still really good work. So that's what I said both of those situations so you can understand like if I say quiet quitting, it's for me, it's still a way you show up and you go for the bronze. That's still really good work. But when it's doing too much and you're not seeing and it's impacting you, then you don't have to go for the gold star. Right, okay? Let me know if that doesn't make sense. So don't say like, oh, I'm going for the bronze, but you're just like doing mediocre work, because even in sports, or especially in the Olympics, the bronze people still be working hard, right? They still be doing their thing. They're still showing up at the level, but maybe I don't know, because I've never been an Olympic athlete. Maybe they just didn't push as I don't know. I'm not saying, I'm not judging them, but you know what I'm saying. So it's like it's different levels to this. So prepare yourself and show up at the level that's required and make sure it is still really good work, even if you get to the point where this is not the place for me. I'm just going to be here, but until your situation changes, you still are required to do that work. All right, I spent a lot of time on that one. Oh, a note that I have here, and this is going back to the biblical part, just very quickly. Think about if you were back in that time and you relied on the priest to present your offering to clear you from your sins, and if they showed up doing quiet, if they quiet quit the offering, their result wasn't mediocre work. Their result was somebody was going to die. So think about it that way. Stop doing the bare minimum. When and again, it's your motives. Like, are you doing the bare minimum because you're pissed off and you don't like the people, or you're doing like just what's required? That's what I'm gonna say. There's a difference between I'm doing the bare minimum and I'm doing what's required. Because when you do what's required, that is what you're doing. You're showing up, doing what you're supposed to do. Then you can save your energy for doing, probably going to that business or preparing yourself for the next job or enjoying your family, whatever it is. But doing the bare minimum, that's a slap in the face, and you don't want somebody to do the bare minimum on you. And yeah, all right. And the last one, excuse me. How disciplined are you to follow orders and routines at work or in your business? So in the Levite with the Levites, and back in, again, that's the biblical part. Everything was in order. When I tell you, just even if you're not a Christian, a Bible reader, nothing, just go to the app, the Bible app, and just look at the Numbers chapters 1 through 3, no, Leviticus 1 through 3, and just scroll through about just how everything was in order. They had to be disciplined down to the guts of the animals. It was very specific, and they had to do it, and they had to be clean. It was a tight ship. So I wonder if we're not at the level of elevation where we want to be. And I speak of we because I got a vision board up there in the corner, and it's the same one I've had for a while. Everything's not checked off, so I'm in here too. It's a we thing. We haven't gotten to a level of elevation is because maybe we're not disciplined enough. It could be self-discipline, waking up discipline, doing a routine discipline. Just look at the areas of your life. You get is between 5 and 15 areas of your life. For all of my people who have degrees, you got the degrees because you were disciplined. It had nothing really to do with how smart you are. I know a lot of people like see that I have my doctorate degree, and the first thing is like, "Oh my gosh, you must be super smart." That's not what that degree said. That degree said I was disciplined and I followed routines and rituals, meaning like my classwork. I showed up. I did the assignments. I did everything they told me to do. I can follow order. I can follow steps. And I did it multiple times because I got 5 of them, right? That's all that meant. And then look at where you are, even if you don't have a degree. You've you've risen to the top of somewhere in your organization. There was something you had to do. You were disciplined how you showed up at work. You started from the but you didn't just become CEO or vice president or whatever by happenstance. Now there's probably some connection, like it's who you know, but it's like maybe who you know got you there, but your character and your discipline kept you there. People who are very successful in business, you can say they have no degree or no any kind of training. There are people out here making millions and billions of dollars. It's not because that they're smarter than you and I. They just got more discipline in certain areas. So when we're wondering how we're not elevated, and when I say, and I don't mean discipline like I mean consistent discipline and very detailed discipline. If you go look at any true habits of highly successful people, and I'm not talking about just the morning routine or the evening routine. These people have trained themselves down to the mediocre things to be automated and put on systems so that they can go to the next area, the next level of their lives. Okay, people who look great, like physical athletes in their bodies, they're disciplined not just with working out, but with what they eat and what they don't eat. It's their mental, everything. You have to be like detailed discipline depending on how high you want to go. And I believe that I wanted to be in a bikini competition. It's over there on my board. I may do it. But when I first started out, and I got with one of my sorority sisters who that's her thing, and she started to tell me some of the things I had to do. And I would work out. Like I'm getting back into it. I used to like working out. I could do that, but the level of workout, the the details of her workout, how disciplined she was with how she worked out, what she ate, what she didn't do, how everything. It was like I said, it was more than just working out and eating. It was a lot of things. I was like, you know what? I don't want it that bad. And we have to be honest with ourselves. A lot of us say we want so much, but how do we show up? We don't want it that bad. We be honest. That's why my cheeks still look like this because I didn't want it. I cracked my own self up. Okay, let me come back. If you want to go into a different type of leadership position and you're wondering, like, all right, I dress the part, my attitude, characters, every vision, all of that is aligned. My work is stellar. But when they say, hey, we need you to show up for this, or we need you to go here or go there, or we need you to do these things and put this in place. And you're like, that's what it's going to take for me to be the CEO. Let's say it's like, we need you to come in at 5 every morning. But in your other jobs, you were coming in at 8. And then it was like, no, but for you to be here, we need you here at 5. Like, we need you here 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm just saying, I don't know if that's how it goes. And you're not willing to do that. And I'm not saying that, I mean, like, prepare yourself to be up, like putting everything in place. So let's say maybe you get up at 5, but you're dragging in and you're not at the top of your game of like how you were at 8, because there are some things you got to do before you get there. There are some rituals and routines and some systems you got to put in place to make sure you're at your optimal level at 5. Then you might start thinking, like, you know what? Being the manager is cool right here. I don't need to be the CEO. Same thing with a lot of people. Let's talk about money. People were like, oh, I want to be a millionaire. Like, I want to have $1 million. But if I asked you right now, like literally, what would you do with $1 million? And you can't save it all. Do you have a plan in place? Are you disciplined enough? Are you disciplined enough with the dollar, $100, the $100,000? So if your first thing is like, oh, I'm just gonna blow it, or I don't even know, then you're not ready for it. You're not disciplined enough to have it. Trust, I got a plan in place. I am ready. So it's like, just come on when you come down. But it's more than just having a plan in place. I had to get my mindset ready for it. I had to get some business systems ready for it. I had to be disciplined in how I show up. Why y'all think I'm coming back on here to really teach live? Not just saying like, oh, the $1 million is gonna come because I'm doing a live stream. No, it's not about that. It's about being disciplined in certain habits and certain systems, because a lot of times we're looking for elevation in one area when when I'll say God, you can say the universe, when God is telling us, but I need you to be more disciplined, more focused over here. It could be your eating habits, it could be drinking water. You don't, it's whatever it is, it has to be something. What are you disciplined? How are you showing up in this area before I give you something over here? A lot of times, me look for the logical path, the logical correlation. Like, okay, if A then B, right? A plus B, it has to equal C, not the way the universe operates. I'm talking about the universal laws. And for my Christian people too, that's just how God made the world. So when it's universal laws, and you're like, that's not in the Bible. Well, the Bible doesn't say universal laws, but anyway, I won't get too deep. I nerd out sometimes. But anyway, so you got to look at how disciplined are you showing up in multiple areas of your life, because it compounds. All right. So if you're not elevating to the level that you want to be at, you got to take a 30,000-foot view sometimes, and maybe you need support. Call me. Let's book a call. Maybe you need support to see where you need to be more disciplined, more focused, so that it can be a holistic approach so everything can rise. All right. So you can't just focus on, well, I'm gonna do everything in my financial space. I'm gonna be real disciplined over here. I'm gonna have the plan. I'm gonna have the people. I'm gonna cut my spending habits or whatever. Get my mind right. But then, you know, when it's over here about, did you is your house in order? Have you cleaned out the clutter? And you're probably thinking like, what does one and two have to do with each other? It's a discipline thing. All right. So is that what I want to end it with? Yes. I'm going to end it there. How this one you are. Oh, one more thing. I wrote it here. I don't know why I wrote it here, but this may be for somebody. I was in the moment, but I said, and stop being an unnecessary know it all. So it's like, how disciplined are you to follow orders and routines? I was like that. I knew it all, especially when I worked at the school district level. And I knew that they were jacking stuff up. And I would tell them that I knew, but it was unnecessary. Sometimes discipline is shutting up. That's what it was. Sometimes being disciplined is shutting your mouth. And even if you know things, shut up. That's probably why you're not elevating, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in the career, whether it's in your social circle, whatever the case may be, is because you're probably not shutting up. All right, so that's all I have for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know which one of our tips stood out to you, whether it was showing up physically, how you prepare yourself physically, how you show up and prepare yourself mentally. Number three, how do you present and prepare your actual work or even in your business? And then how do you show up being disciplined and following orders and routines, whether that's in your career or in your business? Let me know which one resonated with you. If you're watching on the replay, I still want you to participate because I do come back and read the comments, especially if you tag me so I can see them. All right, so thank you so much. If you are interested in what I shared, and you're like, that was cool, I want to learn more. If you want to learn just more about me directly, my book, Embracing Grit for Greatness, Becoming Professionally Powerful Through Personal Empowerment. A lot of what I talked about tonight were things that I had to learn, especially being from district level, going back to the school system to being a college professor. It was definitely a shift, definitely things I had to learn how to show up differently for myself. And then if you want to connect with me on a different level, another resource that I have for you, and I'll probably talk about this in our next class, is the Personal Guided Retreat Kit. It's a complimentary resource to where you connect, and it's like a deeper dive of some of the questions that I asked myself in my book. I literally started asking myself these questions because it was like, how do I show up differently? I didn't know the wording. I didn't know the language to say to myself, but I knew that something had to change. And I it was a lot of self-reflection that I had to do. So what I did, I compiled a lot of questions in different areas of your life for you to answer and to go through and reflect. And then I said you could just take yourself on a little private getaway and do that. And I show you how to do that in the personal guided retreat kit. You can check the link in my bio or my link tree, which is Dr. Renita Glenn White. So Instagram is in my bio, YouTube is in the link, or you can go to drvernitaglenn-white.com/resources, and that will be available to you. So thank you so much. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Share this information if you want. And then I will see you all for our next class. I'll make sure I have that posted, but it's almost like a college level. It's almost like a college course schedule. It may be this week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You know how the classes used to go. All right, so thank you again for joining me, whether live or on the replay. And remember to be well, to be empowered, to be bold, and to be brilliant. Until next time, bye. Yes, I definitely have to work on discipline. Me too. Okay, bye. I just saw that comment. Bye, everyone.